Season 31 of Diablo 3 has finally arrived. Let's have a look at how we're going to play the Death Nova Necromancer build for this season, which is actually insane for Necromancers, because if you didn't know, this season in Kunai's Cube you can actually mix and match, meaning you don't have to have one weapon, armor and jewelry, but all mix and match. So, starting off with the actual core of the build, which is, of course, the skills. Let's have a look at what we're taking. Then we're going to have a look at how they interact with the gear, the gems, and things like that. Starting off, then, the main focus of this build is, of course, Death Nova. Spend health to unleash a powerful Blood Nova that's going to deal damage to all nearby enemies. Therefore, it is a very AoE-focused build. Now, we're actually going to be taking a very specific weapon that I'll show you in the gear part of this video, where basically the more enemies that are here, the more damage this is going to do, which is insane. It's so chaotic. I love it. Now, we do go with the Blood Nova rune on this skill. Spend health to unleash a powerful Blood Nova that deals damage to all nearby enemies. And basically, this is going to work with our simulacrum, where creating 2 simulacrums made of blood and bone that will duplicate your secondary skills and therefore Blood Nova. Without the rune, then, simulacrum, is that how you pronounce it? Will actually not use the runed version. Siphon Blood is our primary skill then, siphoning the blood of the target enemy, dealing damage and healing you, with the rune Power Shift, where damage increases the longer you siphon the target. Now, the way this basically works is that it will then actually activate our Blood Novas through the Blood Nova, through our Siphon Blood, and Simulacrum. This is also going to stack massively with a weapon we're going to get that I'm going to show you in the gear as well, which makes it fantastic. Then on our curses, we've got Frailty. You are emitting an aura that applies a crippling curse which instantly kills low health enemies. This is great for finishing off enemies. And again, we've got a piece of gear that is actually going to mean that we get huge damage reduction when we have this curse on them as well. We then have our bone armor, ripping bones from nearby enemies, dealing damage and creating armor that reduces damage taken per enemy hit. Again, remember, we're trying to get big AoE damage with this build, and this is going to be fantastic with the amount of enemies that we are actually hitting nearby as well. And enemies hits are also going to be stunned. Blood Rush, really simply, this is going to give us some mobility. Shed your mortal flesh and reappear in another location, healing you for every enemy passed through. Again, with the amount of enemies we're doing in this chaotic AoE-based build, it makes sense. Swift Harvesting on the passive then, increasing the attack speed of Bone Spike's Siphon Blood by 15%. Of course, this is going to increase the attack speed of up here, Siphon Blood. Standalone, a fantastic survivability passive, increasing armor by 100%, reduced by 10% for each active minion. Spreading Malediction, receive a 1% damage bonus for each enemy afflicted by one of your curses. Again, with Frailty, the massive AoE, I keep going back to this, AoE, AoE, AoE. This is going to impact really well off this as well. Final Service, when you take lethal damage, you are sustained, preventing all damage for 4 seconds, healing for 10% of your life per minion, cannot happen more than once every 60 seconds, prevents, death. This is fantastic, especially if you are on hardcore. You must take this, in my opinion, unless you want to die. If you aren't scared about death, you could also take Fueled by Death. Consuming a corpse increases your movement speed by 3% for 5 seconds, and this effect can stack up to 10 times. Just a bit more mobility on that one. Looking at the actual gear then, starting on the weapons, we've got 2 options here. The Funerary Pick, Siphon Blood, drains blood from 2 additional targets. Each target takes 300% increased damage from you unless there is only 1 target. Then it gains double instead. The bonus from Siphon Blood Power Shift is now 20% per stack and benefits all skills. Don't forget then that the Power Shift, the damage is increased by 10% each time damage is dealt, maximum of 10 stacks on the Siphon Blood. This is going to stack really well with this weapon, and it synergizes perfectly, especially as we're going to be hitting additional targets as well. The other option is the Bloodtide Blade. Quite simple on this one. Death Nova, remember our secondary skill here, is going to deal 400% increased damage for every enemy within 25 yards, stacking up to 10 enemies for a whopping 4,000% increased damage for 10 enemies, of course. Now, one thing to be aware of is that the Blood-Tide Blade is two-handed and the Funerary Pick is one-handed, meaning we can also then go for the Iron Rose when taking the Funerary Pick. Attacking with Siphon Blood has a 100% chance to cast a free Blood Nova, and this is where it gets really exciting, basically. After cumulatively losing 10% of your maximum life, your Death Nova deals 50% increased damage for 60 seconds, and this can stack up to 10 times. So basically, when we're siphoning and channeling our Siphon Blood, this is going to automatically cast our Blood Nova on our Death Nova, and therefore it's basically going to be passively happening just from Siphon Blood without even using Death Nova at all. I've got to figure I'm going to die. What then happens is that these are then duplicated with the Simulacrum, creating a Simulacrum made of blood that will duplicate your secondary skills. Remember, that's our Death Nova, which is duplicated from this, even though we're using Siphon Blood. So it's kind of like a chain reaction, and the way it works is really, really fun. Remember then that when we're using our Siphon Blood, it's also actually going to work from 2 additional targets, meaning up to 3 targets at a time. Then, on top of that, we then have Haunted Visions. Simulacrum now drains 1% of your maximum life every second and lasts forever, so it never actually ends. They can now duplicate Grim Scythe and can no longer cast Skeletal Mage. Fantastic, okay? So then basically this is not on a cooldown, it lasts forever, making this build be usable forever, whereas before it wouldn't have actually been very usable. We'd have to keep waiting to get this really awesome chain reaction that we just spoke about. Dante's Binding on the waist gives you an additional 50% damage reduction when there's an enemy afflicted by any of your curses. Remember, Frailty is going to be killing off any that come near us, basically, because it becomes an aura that curses all enemies within 15 yards. So whenever we have anything within 15 yards, they then get cursed, and then we're going to take 50% less damage because of it when they get close to us. This is a really good survival ability that works off the back of Frailty. Stone Gauntlets is also fantastic. Getting hit increases your armor by 50%, but reduces your movement speed a little bit, and attack speed stacks up to 5 times. Again, when they do come near us and hit us, we're going to get more survivability. Now, although that is going to slow us down a little bit, we do have Stuart's Greaves on the feet. You gain 100% movement speed for 10 seconds after using Blood Rush. Blood Rush is this skill, remember, heals you for 2% maximum health every enemy you pass through, and it basically goes and you shed your mortal flesh and appear somewhere else. So even though that when we get near them, Stone Gauntlets are going to slow us down, we can use that to get ahead and then increase our movement speed after as well. So we're kind of getting that mobility back. So it does balance out. We've then got the Aquila, I can never pronounce these names. On the chest, we've got this item. While above 90% primary resource, all damage taken is reduced by 50%. Again, fantastic. We're adding intelligence, of course, in all of the gem slots, by the way, apart from the head, where we're adding life for a bit more survivability. Intelligence, of course, giving us more damage, and therefore crit damage as well on the weapon, as always. Mantle of Channeling on the shoulders. While channeling specifically Siphon Blood here, you deal 25% increased damage and take 25% reduced damage. Again, we're always going to be using that Siphon Blood, channeling it as much as possible. So this makes perfect sense, increasing our damage and also reducing the damage we take. Quite simply, it's just Leoric's Crown on the head. If you don't know what this does, it doubles the effect of any gem you slot into it. Therefore, we're putting that Amethyst in and getting double the survivability on the life. And then on the wrists, it's going to be that each stunned enemy within 25 yards reduces your damage taken by 12%, which then takes us on to the gems. Bane of the Trapped, increasing damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects by 60% and gaining an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies within 15 yards by 30%. Again, they are going to be getting close, as we've spoken about in the last few items, and therefore this is going to be fantastic, further increasing our damage against them. And this, of course, as we've just spoken about, pairs perfectly with the Ancient Path and Defenders, which is also going to, for each stunned enemy, reduce your damage taken. Legacy of Dreams, when you've got no set bonuses equipped, like we haven't here, every legendary item you have equipped increases your damage dealt by 375% and reduces your damage taken by 2%. And it's doubled for ancient items. It does mean then for us Necromancers in Season 31 in this build are going to benefit much higher by getting ancient items than everybody else will who is actually using set bonuses. And of course, if you see here, basically every item we've got is a legendary as well. Last but not least, on the Bane of the Stricken is our final rune, gem. Each attack you make against an enemy increases the damage it takes from your attacks, and you get 25% increased damage against rift bosses. This is really important on the last gem slot for your legendary gems, mainly because, as we've spoken about already, this is a fantastic build for AoE, but it does lack a little bit on bosses, and you can end up just being there, going through the motions on the rift bosses, on the rift guardians, and it can take a bit of time, and it can get a bit sort of lackluster on those really higher, greater rifts. So this gem kind of offsets that a little bit. It is still a tad bit of a problem with this build, but you know what? It is what it is. When you're running around and speed farming, etc., it is so fun on this build. Looking at the stat priority for Necromancers in this build for Season 31, it's quite straightforward. We're basically going for damage, crit chance, and damage. We're going for physical damage, and we're going for area damage. And those are the top 5 you really want to be going for. After this, really, you can just concentrate on defensive stats as and when you need them. But most of the damage we're going to be dealing is going to be best put to use through here. It's really as simple as that with this build. Looking at what we're putting onto our follower then, well, we're going to go for the Templar, mainly for survivability. First 2 abilities are going to be on the top for healing. Onslaught, which is also, by the way, going to make your enemies take increased damage for 3 seconds based on the Templar's strength. Hence why we're putting as much strength as we can into the gems on the Templar. Lastly, Guardian, another get out of jail free card for when you're going to die. This will save you. Hence why we put the Enchanting Favour as the Templar relic, because the Templar cannot die. If it cannot die, then basically its cooldowns will always be coming off cooldown. If you don't know when the Templar dies, it can't obviously use any of its cooldowns, and therefore we don't have a get out of jail free card, etc. This is why I always recommend this. The next one, which is really fantastic, is Thunder Fury Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. It's actually going to bounce around to 5 targets and reduce their movement speed as well. Again, meaning that we can get the effect of that on the damage we're dealing with our movement impairing bonuses. Captain Crimson's on the legs and boots. The reason for this is it's actually going to give cooldown reductions. Things like Guardian, etc. are going to actually scale off of this, reducing their cooldowns, meaning the Templar can use those cooldowns more often. Nemesis Bracers. Shrines will spawn an enemy champion. Like I said earlier, this build isn't as amazing on Rift Guardians as it is more on the general mobs in Rifts. And therefore, when we get a shrine, spawning an enemy champion, which is going to give us globes, meaning we can farm things quicker, is going to be really, really effective. On the neck, it's going to be the Flavour of Time. Emanates on there. Pylon effects last twice as long. This will obviously affect you as well with the Emanates effect. Leoric's Crown, always on the headpiece for the Templar. Again, for the same reason we're using it in this build, is because of the double up we get on the gem we put into here. And for this one, it's actually cooldown reduction. Again, for the same reason that we're using Captain Crimson's. It doesn't really matter too much on a few of the other items. Homing pads on the shoulders are fantastic because it means that you avoid any interruption when you're damaged trying to get back to town, especially if you're on hardcore and you're like, uh-oh, I've got to get back to town ASAP or it's all over. It will also reduce the damage you take while channeling that portal to get back to town as well. Same thing on Gloves of Worship. Emanates on there. Shrine effects lasting for 10 minutes. Fantastic. And the Oculus Ring, which has a chance to make a little gold circle on the floor, which if you stand in, you will do more damage quite simply. Looking at the Paragon points, first up, we're going to put everything into movement speed so we can get going a bit faster. Then it's going to be Vitality and then Intelligence. I wouldn't really recommend putting loads into Maximum Essence, unless you really do feel like you need it. On Offensive then, it's going to be attack speed, so we can get that out faster. There's certain breakpoints with our Siphon Blood. I'm not going to go into that right now. I feel like maybe a bit too in-depth for this guide. If you would like more in-depth guides, by the way, do let me know. I'm new to doing Diablo free guides, although it is obviously a game I absolutely love. So I really want to hear your feedback on what things you'd like in the guides, or maybe things that you don't care about, etc., so that I can make sure that I'm putting out the best information for you. So attack speed, then crit damage, then crit chance, then cooldown reduction. On defense, it's going to be firstly armor, then life, then resistances, and then life regen lastly. And on utility, it's of course going to be area damage with those big bloody novas we're doing. Life per hit is coming after that. Resource cost reduction after that. And lastly, of course, gold pickup. If you're not sure then what we're going to put into the cube, well, let me tell you, we get the best out of it this season. Some other classes, like the Demon Hunter, don't really have anything changed for their cube. This season, in Season 31, basically, you can put whatever you want in there. So we're actually going to put 3 whole weapons in there. First up is Scythe of the Cycle. Your secondary skills, like our Nova, deal 400% additional damage while Bone Armor is active, but reduce the remaining duration of Bone Armor by 4 seconds. So basically on this then, our secondary skill of Death Nova, which is doing the Blood Novas through our Siphon Blood, through Simulacrum, is going to do 400% additional damage when we've got our Bone Armor active, which we've only got on a 10-second cooldown, which is fantastic. It's absolutely insane. And this is one of the reasons why Necromancer is doing so well this season in Season 31. Tragul's Corroded Fang. The Curse Scythe rune for Grim Scythe now has a 100% chance to apply Curse, and you deal 200% increased damage to cursed enemies. Are we cursing our enemies? Yes, we are, because of Frailty and the aura we're getting from that. Therefore, we're dealing 200% increased damage to those cursed enemies. Lastly, if we are going for the Funerary pick, we can put the Blood-Tied Blade in here, getting the effect of that like I spoke about earlier, so we can get all of the effects we want. And like I said, in Kunai's Cube this season, we don't have to mix and match. It's not one amulet, one armor, one weapon. We can put 3 weapon slots in there, which is, again, why Necromancer is so crazy this season. And a few of other classes do, you know, they don't get what we get. So just to recap then on what the hell we're doing with this build, because of the Iron Rose offhand we're using, your Siphon Blood is going to automatically cast nearby Death or Blood Novas, should I say, and it's going to hit multiple targets. These Death Novas are also going to consume your Bone Armor through the Scythe, remember, that we've put in Kunai's Cube, dealing even more damage. We're also increasing the speed of our Siphon Blood through the Swift Harvesting passive, making it pump out even faster and get those Blood Novas out. And then we have Blood Rush for some extra mobility. And of course, Simulacrum, which is going to, you know, be doing what it does. It's going to be up at all times using that Siphon Blood to push through the Death Nova. And that's it, guys. That is how we're going to play the Death Nova build. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you're using this build, I'd love to hear how you get on with it. It does very well in multiplayer when you don't have to worry about the boss so much, but you've got huge packs of mobs you're grouping up. And I think it's really, really fun. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you did enjoy it. You can always join my Patreon, which I'll leave in the description below as well. If you would like any behind-the-scenes info or you need any more support from me, one-on-one, etc., I can offer that there. And you can also join my Discord, where we have a lot of other ARPG players. You can click here as well if you would actually like to see other Diablo 3 Season 31 guides. I'm putting out as many as I know. I don't know all of them, but I do know a lot of them. I play all sorts of classes on here. I've been playing it since, you know, beta back in 2010 or whenever it was. So I definitely can help you out where you need.